You last testified. Mr. Mueller, the first assistant prosecutor, was asking you some questions with regard to the video disc that had been played concerning Mr. Stangeland's interview back in June 28th, I believe it was, of 2009. Do you recall your testimony concerning that?
Yes.
And we had just viewed the video. I'll show you what was marked S258. I believe you identified that before as the video, correct?
Correct.
And I'll show you what's been marked S259. That was a copy of the transcript. I think you identified that as a transcript that had been made from the video recording, correct?
Correct.
And I believe you said you were familiar with them and you had reviewed them previous to coming in to testify, correct?
Yes. Correct.
And that included viewing the video from the 28th of June 2009, correct?
Yes, 2010.
2010. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, 2010. Mr. Mueller asked you whether or not during the course of the interview Mr. Stangeland showed certain emotion or remorse. Do you recall being asked that?
Yes, I did.
And I believe your answer was to the effect absolutely none as to both of those issues, correct?
Correct.
You didn't know Mr. Stangeland before that interview, did you?
No.
And he had just been brought in from out of state and brought to be interviewed by you and I believe it was Officer Mueller of the prosecutor's office, correct?
Correct.
And I'm not trying to be, I guess the word would be facetious, but would I be correct that you have been a law enforcement officer for almost a decade?
Longer.
Okay, longer. And you had basic law enforcement training, correct?
Correct.
And at the present time, are you still a detective with the Newton Police Department?
Yes.
And back in 2009, you were a detective, 2009, 2010, you were a detective with the Newton Police Department, correct?
Correct.
At the time of the event, January of 2010, you were, among other detectives, Detective Tosti, Detective Casey, and Detective Richards, who has now become the chief of police, correct?
Correct.
And would that be fair to say it was about a four-man detective department in your department?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you have any degrees or training with regard to psychiatry, psychology, behavioral sciences, etc.?
No.
Do you have any licenses of any kind that would qualify you to make judgments concerning people's emotions and people's remorse?
Any degrees in that?
Yes.
No.
Do you have any formal training as a law enforcement officer with regard to detecting whether a person is remorseful or a person shows emotion?
Well, I have training in interviewing people.
So you engaged in an interview of Mr. Stangeland in 2010 in June, correct?
Correct.
And in doing so, I think you're a little ahead of me, but I assume you employed some of the skills and training that you had with regard to those interviewing techniques, correct?
Correct.
And tell me if I'm incorrect, but several goals of the interviewing process that you were taught is that you want to get the person being interviewed, whether it be a witness or a suspect, to talk to you, correct?
Correct.
And second of all, not only do you want them to communicate with you, but you want them to be cooperative with you, correct?
Correct.
And you also want that person to not only be cooperative with you, but you also want them to feel as if they are comfortable in being in the setting of being interviewed and speaking with you, correct?
Correct.
And those goals are goals that you would use in connection with interviewing Mr. Stangeland in 2010, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, was Mr. Stangeland ever uncooperative with you during his interview?
On that day?
Yes.
No, he was not. He was 12.
And Mr. Stangeland had a tendency, as I recollect from the viewing of the video, that sometimes he would have like a little laugh in his voice. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And that was something that happened repeatedly, am I correct, during the interview?
Yes.
Okay. And that wasn't something that you detected to be a lack of remorse or emotion from, was it? The fact that he had a little laugh?
No.
It was sort of, I guess, I don't know if the phrase is a tick, I think is what sometimes they refer to it. A person has, they have a habit.
Could be, I wouldn't refer to it as a tick, though.
Okay. With regard to Mr. Stangeland, when he was interviewed by you, and in front of you is the transcript. Could you just tell me again what that number is of the transcript on the back?
That's 259.
Take yourself to page 61 of that transcript, if you would. On page 61, down at the bottom, I don't know, 4 or 5 lines up on the bottom, you asked him a question. I believe that's Detective TM is you, correct?
Correct.
What do you think should happen to you? Am I correct?
Yes.
And what was Mr. Stangeland's response to that question?
His answer is, to me, I don't know. I don't know. I got messed up in a badass deal. I wish I sure didn't call as it was. It was not really to gain anything, because it did. Because all it did is cost me, and cost me, and cost me, and cost me.
And you replied?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that was a direct response to a question that you asked, what do you think should happen to me, right?
Correct.
You didn't pursue that line of questioning with him according to the transcript, am I correct?
After that, the next page is a statement from Mr. Stein.
Okay. Let's go to page 66. Let's take you, I don't know, 2/3 of the way down the page. You asked the question, are you remorseful at all? Am I correct?
Yes.
And what was his reply?
Oh God, yes. Yes. That's what I don't know if. Why, yes. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I don't know what I could do to make it up to the guy, you know, and on the like you say on the warrant, or I guess that's what you call it.
And you replied, yes, yeah, it's a warrant.
Yeah, it's a warrant.
Okay. So you asked him a question about whether he was remorseful, and he said, God, yes to you. Am I correct?
Said, oh God, yes, yes.
Okay. When the prosecutor asked you the question of was he remorseful, you said absolutely not. How did you interpret Mr. Stangeland's statement with regard to the answer to your question?
There were just words coming out of his mouth.
I see. So really didn't mean anything coming from him.
There's no feeling behind his words.
But again, you didn't know Mr. Stangeland's mannerisms or his emotions, am I correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the lack of emotion, was that something that you noted throughout the entire interview?
Aside from the lighthearted laughs that were sporadic throughout the interview, there really wasn't any emotion as far as him feeling sorry for Mr. Mueller. He pretty much felt sorry that he was caught.
I see. Did he ever say that?
No.
Never said he was sorry he was caught, did he?
No.
That was something that you perceived from the interview, I assume.
Correct, it's my opinion.
Now, based upon your status as a detective here in Newton, you were not initially the lead detective on the investigation commencing on the 8th of January 2010, am I correct?
Define lead detective.
Wasn't Detective Casey in charge of the investigation at that point?
It was an investigation. We were both working together that day, and for lack of a better term, we worked cooperatively.
Didn't Detective Casey tell you that you were supposed to go to the landfill in Lafayette and look for a possible body?
I volunteered to go to the landfill.
I see. Detective Casey, I believe you said, is no longer with law enforcement, am I correct?
Correct.
He wasn't called to testify in this case, was he?
Not to my knowledge.
With regard to the investigation led you and a group of individuals, I believe 8 law enforcement individuals from the state of New Jersey then, to go out to the state of Missouri and continue your investigation there, correct?
Correct.
And when you arrived out there, you encountered various police officers and law enforcement officers, sheriff's officers from the Lake Ozark Police Department, the Vernon Sheriff's Department. Did you encounter any individuals from the Bates County Sheriff's Department?
No.
And your investigation included basically taking a lead role with regard to the investigation, am I correct?
Correct.
And you were involved in obtaining the search warrant for the search of the defendant's motor vehicle, correct?
Incorrect.
You had nothing to do with that?
No.
Okay. I was of the impression that you participated in the search of the vehicle.
As far as searching it?
Yes.
Or applying for a search warrant?
Applying for the search warrant.
Oh, negative.
Okay. So that was handled through local law enforcement?
Search warrant for the vehicle?
Yes.
That was handled by, I believe at the time, Detective Sergeant Howard Ryan and Detective Rita Gallo of the State Police.
I see. So it was someone from New Jersey who handled that investigation rather than, and obtaining the search warrant rather than someone from Missouri?
Correct.
And at some point in time, it appears that you would have basically taken over this investigation from the authorities in Missouri. Would that be fair to say?
As far as the investigation in New Jersey, yes.
Okay, and the charges in New Jersey were going to basically supersede what was going on out in Missouri, am I correct?
That I don't know.
Okay. When you visited Missouri, you interviewed certain individuals while you were out there, am I correct?
Correct.
And ultimately, you continued your investigation, fair to say?
Yes.
And that investigation led for even several years up until now when we're here in the courtroom.
Correct.
And that investigation resulted in you accumulating a rather substantial file and a rather substantial number of papers regarding this matter. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
With regard to the investigation, after meeting with Mr. Stangeland in June of 2010, did you continue your investigation during the month of September of 2010?
I believe so.
And at some point in time, did you write a report that indicated that you had reviewed the interview which occurred regarding Roy Slates?
Judge, do we approach?
Yes.
Judge.
Could we reapproach that?
Yeah. A legal discussion and perhaps avoid